everyone, my name is Chris and welcome to another exciting episode of Restoring Justice. In this episode, our communications manager Jamie-Leigh will be in conversation with Coulee Ross, where we'll learn more about her art and how she envisions using it as a tool for healing, especially in Indigenous spaces. Earlier this year, Coulee helped to facilitate a mural for our Soul Nostalgia event, where we learned the importance of the medicine wheel and how it symbolizes harmony with all aspects of life. Historically, art has provided a way for communities to express identity and culture and also address the impacts of colonization. We touch on these topics as it relates to Coulee's own identity and how she uses modern technology to engage with these traditional teachings. So join us for this exciting conversation as we examine how art continues to fuel healing, resistance, and resurgence in Indigenous communities. Hi.
Hello.
Thanks for being on this podcast with us. I'm really excited to get to talk to you today, not just because the work you do is so cool, but also because I just love getting to go deeper with you on some of the conversations that we've had in real life as friends, and also like in the sort of making the personal political ideas. So I just wanted to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself in a good way.
Well, I go by the reclaimed name of Coulee, mostly. That is a name that's an ode to my Métis lineage and my Métis forefathers who were betrayed by the church and lost their last resistance. And then I have a relative. It's like a great grand uncle, Donald Ross, who was captured by the RCMP, and he was tortured, and the details of his horrific torture are like commemorated with, Louis Riel was captured. He was brought into Regina and hung at the RCMP, like the mounted police training place in Dewdney, and they still have the rope that hung him on display for school tours. But so you could read about the details, but he was like 87 years old or something, very, very old. The story is that they sent all these young guys away and were like, go hide your families, and then they stayed and were captured at a place called Torrance Coulee. And yeah, and so my actual legal name, I won't say it, but it's super colonial, and I honestly can't stand it. And when people say that name to me, I just grit my teeth. Coulee is of that kind of energy of the Métis resistance and energy. I feel like I know that, but I carry with me pretty strongly. So I go by that name mostly. Yeah.
What a great opening for the conversation that we're gonna have.
Yeah. Just got political fast.
Yeah. If you had to sort of describe in a somewhat condensed, you don't have to be that condensed, way, how would you describe your artistic practice? I know it's expansive.
It's so expansive. But I would say that I'm clear in what I'm like striving and moving towards. And that's like, I want to pursue like a PhD in Indigenous healing arts, where arts are recentered as they should within healing and wellness. And so I feel like that's kind of at the heart of everything that I do within the art realm. But I say this with like the full acknowledgement and awareness that art and life are not separate for me either. And so if I had to pin it down, I would say I'm a storyteller who moves through so many various mediums over the past 2-3 decades.
Yeah. Amazing. And just sort of tied to the opening and introducing yourself, how does your identity as a Métis and Cree person inform or influence your artistic practice?
I have various Indigenous ancestry and some non-Indigenous, violent occupier, uninvited settler ancestry as well. One of my grandparents, the one who just passed actually, belongs to the uninvited guest occupant ancestry pile. And my other 3 ancestors or grandparents are all various Indigenous identities. Every one of my Indigenous grandparents was, of course, impacted by colonization, but they were also impacted by the sexism in the Indian Act. And I bring up my ancestors a lot, but it's important to me. Like, I've learned to, like, details about them to be able to place them. But I can say that as a being growing and, like, being alive in this world, I have always felt this, like, really, really, really deep and clear kind of connection to, like, the liminal world, whatever that is, like, whatever you want to call that, if you want to call that, like, ancestors or spirit, you know, it doesn't really, like, need to have a name for me, but I've always had this very strong, clear connection. So it's not even so much that my ancestors, like, guide me, but it's, like, they're, like, literally here with me. And, like, beyond ancestors, too, like, I've learned to collaborate and build stronger relation and, like, stronger connection. But they've always been this, like, just inseparate part of how I move, like the practices of believing we move and carry our ancestors with us, or with intentionality for the next 7 generations to come. These kinds of, like, cyclical ways of being and relating, those have been, like, deliberately eradicated and attacked living in Canada. And so because 3 out of 4 of my grandparents belong to these kind of identities and this displacement, it's, like, innate for me to, like, sit politically within Canada. And then the way that I move as a being and an artist is also, like, it's innate, even though it looks political and looks like reclamation. It's, like, it just is.
It just is, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what a great answer.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Gold stars.
Yeah, gold stars for all around.
Yay.
So obviously we know that we live in and experience an occupation in so-called Canada. I think art, culture, and, like, ways of being are really powerful tools of resistance. I don't just think that, like, I know that and we know that. And so how have you used art and storytelling as a way to disrupt dominant colonial narratives about Indigenous people and about Indigenous rights?
Art has used me
Yeah, classic.
to disrupt the impact of colonialism as much as possible. And that's kind of, like, the heart of what I hope will be, like, my thesis and my practice within the academia circuit is, like, you know, I very, like, vehemently believe that art was so intentionally, like, what we call art, I think colonially, we call art, like, you know, like a craft or a gesture or a thing. And, like, maybe we can monetize that, or maybe that can become a career. But I actually, like, it's a part of being a human. It's like breath. You know, it's, like, it cannot be separate from how we're entangled, like, cosmically within, like, the greater world and within this world. And so I think, like, our wellness doesn't exist without art and our ability to cultivate and nurture that expression and that relation, like, within ourselves and within the world. And it's, like, if you listen to stories within different Indigenous nations, they all have stories which talk about, like, you know, whether you call yourself, like, a steward or whatever name for that, but the responsibility of being a human being and what your role is. And it's to sing, to dance, to pray, to be grateful, to story and re-story. Like, this is all what we would call art. An example of something kind of more recently is the Storytellers Festival, which, like, I curated and everything, staffed, and all the things, you know, you were there. But the central theme was focusing on listening as an Indigenous relational technology, and so I looked at, like, the nightlife and, like, what is an expected exchange of, like, am I being entertained and I'm exchanging my money and, you know, the distraction that's available within entertainment and nightlife, which is like a whole other conversation. Yeah. And tried to provide, like, what if it actually provided connection and like safety, like things that aren't really conventionally found, mm-hmm. and tried, instead of like tuning out, which I feel like is typical of any kind of like socialization and slash escapism, mm-hmm. I invited people to tune in. And so there was like listening to story, like live performance of like intimate kind of like audio erotica pieces that were performed. And I did receive feedback from lots of people. And there was even like a really beautiful article. There was a journalist that was present that night and wrote this just beautiful piece. But it was that people were, and I could see actually the night, and I'm sure you've seen too, but people were like sparkling, and they were present, and they were like refreshed and alive, and that's like why I think that, you know, it's been removed from, but why it needs to be re-centered is like there's such power, you know, and it's so it can be joyful, like it can be pleasurable to shift, and open. And
the thing for me that I really experienced that night, I would say, like, in terms of like, I mean, I didn't get to necessarily experience it because I was like supporting and helping and a part of it, but what I perceived as what was happening was like not just like the presence that people were able to have because they were like immersed in story, in sound, in connecting without the distractions, but there was like a relaxation that happened visibly in people's bodies when we listen in such intentional ways. It's like, it's just like a calling back to, you know, maybe these ways of being that we used to actually be centered. Not only were we like letting that sense of sound, you know, wash over you, but by doing so, the rest of your body was like calm and at ease. Instead, we're like always like, okay, we have touch, we have sound, we have, you know, visuals in our face all the time. Everything's bright, everything's like full on, which is like not a bad thing either, but like recalibrating to balance is so important. And it was just so cool to see a space where people really had autonomy to experience auditory stimulation in the way that felt good and safe for them to experience it. It was really cool to see, and also to really recognize in like juxtaposition with our daily life, like how we're not making spaces for things like that.
What are we not tuning into? What is the power of tuning in? To like what frequency?
I want to like go off script a little bit because you talked a bit about, you know, the technologies, right? And I think that's another thing that often gets misconstrued when, I'm going to say like when colonial lenses get applied to like Indigenous art, it's always like what it could have been pre-contact, instead of recognizing that like Indigenous people are here and exist in like the current culture and the current climate and the current like everything, and that technology is just a tool for like expression and creativity, and that technology would have continued to advance in the same like way that like technology advances globally, because people are creators and artists and like storytellers. So I'm just curious how technology has been a I'm going to say the word tool. I hate the word tool, but like, you know, like been an asset maybe. I don't know. That's also a terrible word, but like for you in creating.
Yeah. Well, I love that you said that. And I think too, like, it's interesting because like, you know, colonialism, like, like, it is referred to by most Indigenous cultures across the world, like, as far as, like, evolutionarily, as little brother. You know? Like, and so it's always, like, something to really take note of when we're using words, and we're using them in this, like, very noun based, like we know it and period. It's now a dead thing. We've contained it kind of a way. It's like, well, have we now? And like the word technology is like is in that vein too, because like and I hear things like from people with settler ancestry that maybe they're like uncomfortable or guilty or I don't know and defensive, and they'll say things like, well, if you don't like the advancement here and the internet, then go out of here. And it's just like,
it's really good voice.
It's just like, bro, like it's so funny because like the truth is, the reality is like, and the numbers are wildly contested, but like elders I've spoken with, it's over 100 million is like a kind of a consensus of population, easily the population that predates contact. And that's not even talking about the fact that there was bison covering the land, and the land was so abundant with resource and animal. And so we talk about these things now, like these are like new for us now. We're talking about like being stewards of resources and environmental impact and like how to manage it and mitigate risks and blah, blah, blah. But like, these are conversations that they were long had solved, you know, like when settlers first came here, they thought that it was the Garden of Eden, like literally from their Bible, because it was teeming with life. And then they come here with their doctrine of discovery and call us savages. And 500 years later are like, they didn't have technology. It's pretty funny.
It's so funny.
You know?
I mean, it's so outrageous.
Yeah, you're just like, what?
Yeah. Yeah. It's just such a...
Yeah, and if they listen for like 5 seconds to any Indigenous story in any nation, you know, like they hear about technologies, like even for harvesting rice. You know, and like, so technologies.
Yes.
But in a more like Western colonial way, I'm like, I am very open to engaging with technologies, as I feel like as Indigenous people, we have always been technologists. Yeah. And it's like so firmly part of like what I decree and, you know, vocalize and embody. But also like in a futurist way, like, I feel very responsible as a human being for outside of just my own self, for like bigger than me identity and like bigger than me belonging. And so I am open to collaborate with like the world and the world around me. And if that means technology or AI, you know, it's exciting to me even because like I want to take those things and entangle with those things in this like responsible way and like move forward into like a future that we can all share, you know, that is something we're not all collectively dreaming currently, you know, but you know, but yeah,
I do. Then can you share about a piece or a project that feels especially important to you and why?
Well, I really want to go back to university and get my PhD, and that feels especially important to me. Indigenous Healing Arts. But the piece that's really important, I think, at the forefront of importance currently is I have been, as far as visual art exploration, in the last couple years, I have been creating these beautiful wall pieces that are tufted and exploring like tufting and all of its possibility. And it's like so exciting and unexplored and feels like a technology, like kind of a contemporary technology of like so many, like it's very adjacent to like, there's like moose tufting for earrings, you know, which is like adjacent, or there's like carving, like you carve the rugs, or literally weaving and you know, like making tapestries and fabric, and this is like with a gun. So it's for me like in that very cool like adjacent arena, but like so open for the now and the exploration and so it's been really fun. And since I started exploring that medium, I exclusively work with buffalo imagery. Like I have dreams of buffalo, and that's kind of why I started exploring the medium. And It's all just like very organically unfolding. Like I never had any aspiration of working with buffalo. If anything, actually, as an artist, I'm pretty resistant to being stereotyped as an Indigenous person. So I've been like resistant to kind of stereotypical, like what would be expected. So I would have like a stronger resistance than anything, but it's just been like these dreams, and it feels like I have to create these pieces. And it's been really like sweet to explore, and like as a Cree person, to just like really sit with like, oh, like it's the buffalo medicine feels like it's so strong in me right now, and I'm so connected to it. And what does that mean about the prairies and the land and some of the pieces that I'm dreaming? And like it's very much prairie landscape and prairie ecosystems, and then thinking about like the body of land and the earth and my own body and like my own healing journey and how they're like linked and like mirrored and the same and entrained. And then with these pieces, I like want to keep creating them, but I also, whatever I sell for these pieces, like I feel very firmly that I want a healthy portion of proceeds to go directly to buffalo restoration efforts. And I would like to go to buffalo restoration efforts, and like I'd like to create this like cyclical kind of circular exchange.
And they're so beautiful to look at visually.
Buffaloes?
Well, no, yes, but your art, your rugs.
The rugs, thank you. And buffaloes are too.
And the buffaloes.
Yeah.
All
Thank
of the
you.
above. Yeah, for sure. Okay, I was gonna just briefly mention that we're super excited and lucky to have you come and help co-facilitate one event that we hosted at Raven called Solastalgia. I kind of just was more of the spiel about making public art and Raven stuff. But we were really so lucky to have you come and talk about Medicine Wheel teachings. And then we got to collectively, collaboratively with the people who showed up on that day, make a temporary public mural. So I just wanted to talk about taking up space in public, with art that has a purpose. And so and how you've done that in the past. Maybe if you want to talk about that day, you totally don't have to, but any reflections from that day. What your experience with bringing, I don't even want to say bringing it to the public. It's about taking up space, right? It's about being you can't just walk past me and not see this. Because sometimes you got to be like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Working with Raven was fun. That was a really fun day, and it was super cute, and I loved it. And I am very grateful to be entangled with Raven. Within the Medicine Wheel, there's always polarity, and every phase grows into the next. And so in a pre-contact setting, we used to have initiations and rites of passage to kind of mark your own personal human growth along something you could track, emotionally, physical changes, mental capacity, etc. as you move through and with and carry, in this never ending toroidal field of this cyclical thing that generates into the next all the time, or even death is seen as generative, which is now you're people are bugging out, they can't follow. So if you're just looking from a development of self perspective, as soon as you are not, and it's interesting, I can get deep with this. So within my own personal life and childhood, there wasn't core safety met. And so I think what I'm learning now, because the phases don't have to be linear either, they can be happening at any point in time, because time is a social construct, and it's linear. So I think I'm more so there now with what is safety now, to develop that more personal sense of the me, the individual, the I, you know? But I think because the safety wasn't necessarily there and I had to do things like caretake for adults and create safety for myself and all these kinds of things, I think, and because the relationship with other was, like the relationship with ancestor, spirit, whatever it was, that the ability to like collaborate and think bigger than myself and outside of myself, and that like generous, what we would label like generous kind of action or of giving, has been always like innate, and it's quite strong actually. And then like me as an individual kind of getting and boundaried, and what is that kind of getting into that more stronger, and the identity of that, or identifying with that. So all of those words to say that like art and life are not separate for me, and I, more than the me as an I, as a self, I am very generous as far as like giving in relation and building community and building family, and showing up and reclaiming spaces and all of these things, and cultivating something that's generative and life affirming, in kind of all of the ways that I participate. And whether that's like all of the teenagers that, you know, feel like this is their home by extension as well, or the families that I've built, like with you and Rook, or, you know, whether it's like an art practice and it's something that I've offered the community, and that has like inspired some kind of shift for the person, and it's developed into like a longer term relation, or like my future dreaming of having a PhD, that is again for my responsibility to community. It's for my responsibility to younger generations who I don't want to grow up with this like separation within self, and I want to feel like this connection can be cultivated as early as possible, because that's literally the point. The point is like we're supposed to be cultivating this garden so that it's like plentiful and abundant for the next round, and it just gets better and better, you know, which is the opposite
of
of colonization and everything we believe, right?
And everything I'm hearing you say is just like restoring belonging, right? You've restored belonging for yourself through all of these things, through finding connections and community when what was there wasn't available to be, or safe, and restoring belonging for those who come next, in a way that's like, you're not just inheriting this, you know, over-extracted, industrialized wasteland that we ruined for you. You belong here. And all the beings belong here. That's really powerful to like be rooting your way of being in the world in that. Anything else you want to say to the people?
The people
who listen, the people with listening ability to.
Yeah, I mean, like, thanks for listening, but also it's like really important to listen to Indigenous peoples and what they're saying, and put action and weight behind what they're saying, because they have been the technologists and the stewards of these lands, you know, for like thousands and thousands and thousands of years, you know, and colonization has been this like little blip, you know, and it maybe needs to check itself a bit. And so it is so powerful to listen, you know, and be open to that. So
thank you for having us in your home, and for sharing tea with us and having a great conversation, and for continuing to be like, it's just such a good vibe.
Thanks.
I love it. Appreciate you.